What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going through my Week 15 top 30 running back rankings, assuming you guys are in the fantasy football playoffs, helping you guys make the best roster decisions. If you have any questions, you can drop them down below. Make sure to get back to you as soon as I can. If you enjoyed the video, just do me a huge favor, hit that like button and subscribe. But let's dive right into the rankings here. And as per usual, the top tier running backs are, a plenty. This has been a really strong running back season, and we're going to have 9 tier 1 running backs here. We're going to start it off with Derrick Henry going up against the Giants. The Ravens have the highest implied point total this week. They are 14.5-point favorites, and the Giants are allowing the 7th most points per game to the running back spot. Really just seems like a dream run out for one of those monster Derrick Henry games. We know in previous seasons, he has been a late season hammer. This seems like a great spot for him here going up against the Giants. Now, last week, we did have Saquon Barkley, who's going to be my running back 2. He was my running back 1 heading into the week, was the running back 1 in points per game, had a great matchup, didn't necessarily come through, but I'm still firing up Saquon here as my RB2 this week. My RB3 is going to be Bijan Robinson going up against the Raiders, and he has just been unbelievably consistent. 20-plus PPR points in 7 out of his last 8 games. Tough to rank him any lower here than the RB3 spot. My running back 4 is going to be Joe Mixon going up against the Dolphins. Actually have back-to-back guys in that same matchup. Mixon's my running back 4. Achane is my running back 5. Mixon, still the running back 2 in points per game, coming off the bye week. Decent matchup here against the Dolphins. And then for Achane, with Tua as the starting quarterback, he is averaging 22.5 PPR points per game. We've seen the rushing efficiency really has not been there out of him. The run game overall for the Dolphins has been rough, but he continues to produce with the receiving production. It's not a great matchup here against the Texans, but I think the fact that he's getting most of his production through the air kind of nullifies it. So Achane's still going to be a top 5 guy for me. My running back 6 is going to be Josh Jacobs going up against the Seahawks. Just like Bijan Robinson, he's been on a 20-plus point tear, 6 out of his last 7 games. Early on in the season, it was just the touchdown production that wasn't there. In the last 7 games, he has scored 11 touchdowns, so he is more than making up for it. I believe he's had like 3 touchdown games in 2 of the last 3 weeks. So Josh Jacobs locked an RB1 play. Then I have Chase Brown going up against the Titans. It's honestly so tough ranking these dudes because they're all just such quality plays. Chase Brown in 5 games without Zach Moss is averaging 22.3 points per game. He has scored at least 19 PPR points in all 5 of them. So Chase Brown, another dude who has to be an auto start. Then someone who might be a little bit surprising here. This is actually a good time to talk about a couple of players who I'm assuming are not going to be going. Kenneth Walker. As of right now, it doesn't seem like he has a great shot to play. That could change when I update these later on. But for this video, assuming Kenneth Walker's out, I'm also going to be assuming Breece Hall is out. I just would not comprehend why you're trying to rush him back, when you're completely out of it, and have 2 running backs, who could get some run here. So those are the 2 guys I'm assuming are out. But my running back 8 is going to be Zach Charbonnet going up against the Packers. And it might seem kind of weird to have him up here with all these other stud running backs, considering a couple weeks ago he was like a running back 2, not giving you anything. But we have seen 3 games with no Kenneth Walker, and Zach Charbonnet has been a monster in those games. 27.3 points per game. He's averaging 18 carries, 5.3 targets per game. So the usage is there. He's producing on those opportunities. And it's kind of funny, but like Zach Charbonnet without Kenneth Walker is better than just Kenneth Walker with Zach Charbonnet, because Charbonnet is just pretty much taken like 100% of this backfield. He is dominating the opportunities. He's getting all the receiving work. He is getting all the goal line looks, and that is leading to great production like we have seen here. So if Kenneth Walker's missing, like Zach Charbonnet, auto start in your lineup. Another guy who should be an auto start in your lineup, and it feels weird having him here at running back 9, Jahmyr Gibbs going up against the Bills. And it's weird having him this low because he is the running back 6 in points per game. And he's a great matchup here. The Bills are allowing the 3rd most points per game to the running back position. Jahmyr Gibbs has been an ultra consistent option, 10 plus points in all 13 of his games. It is just such a stacked tier. And I do think you have guys rising who maybe are below him in points per game, but are on the rise in Achane, a Josh Jacobs, a Chase Brown, a Zach Charbonnet. So still think Jahmyr Gibbs is a great play. It's just a really, really strong position. Now moving into tier 2, going to start off this tier with Kyren Williams going up against the 49ers. In week 14, he had his best game since week 3. He is 2nd in the NFL in touchdowns. Still just dominating the usage. Like him here as a top 10 option. Also a decent matchup here against the 49ers. I think a lot of people think this is a great defense. They've actually, been kind of soft against the run. My running back 11 is going to be David Montgomery going up against the Bills. Like I talked about with Jahmyr Gibbs, it's a nice matchup. Top 3 in points per game allowed. On the season, David Montgomery is the running back 11 in points per game. Found some consistency, 15 plus points in each of his last 4. Then my running back 12, someone who I'm very high on this week, Chuba Hubbard going up against the Cowboys. In his last 5 games, he has put up 15 plus in 4 of them. He has put up 20 plus points in 3 of his last 5. And this is a really nice matchup here against the Cowboys. They're allowing the 4th most points per game to the running back position. Jonathan Brooks, I really like Jonathan Brooks heading into the season. He was not panning out, starting to maybe eat into Chuba Hubbard's workload in week 13. He is now done with another ACL tear on the same knee. Just an awful situation. But for Chuba Hubbard, he's going to be the workhorse here in a great matchup on a Panthers offense that has looked pretty decent over the last few weeks. And then I'm going to be wrapping up tier 2 with Alvin Kamara going up against the Commanders. Feels a little bit low for someone who I believe is the running back 4 in points per game. But you look at his last 4 games, he has put up 15.9 PPR points twice and then 12.9 PPR points twice. This is a Saints offense that just offensively is not going to be a super high scoring unit. They have the 2nd lowest implied point total. Derek Carr not going to be at quarterback. I still think Kamara can bring in a ton of dump offs, but the touchdown upside isn't and hasn't been there. And even when they have had goal line opportunities, Taysom Hill's vultured. We had Kendre Miller vulturing in week 14. So if you're just pretty much like ruling out touchdowns, it's going to be tough to compete with a lot of the stud running backs ahead of him. Still playable, but that's my concern with Kamara. Now shifting into tier 3, going to start off this tier with James Conner going up against the Patriots. He's my running back 14 this week. He's the running back 16 on the season. Cardinals, I think, are going to put up points in this matchup. They have the 3rd highest implied point total. James Conner is coming off of a nice week 14. Then I have James Cook going up against the Lions. Really rough week 14, 4.9 PPR points. It obviously didn't help that Josh Allen ran in 3 touchdowns. I think 2 of them were like the tush push, but only 8 opportunities. You would have liked to see in a trailing game script him get super involved as a pass catcher. That was not the case. It's not a good matchup here against the Lions. They're allowing the 2nd fewest points per game to the running back position, but James Cook still has been a nice high-end running back 2 on the season. Bills are going to put up points in this matchup. Still think James Cook is a solid play. He really hasn't been a workhorse throughout this season, so the floor a little bit sketchy, but on a good offense, running back 1, he's a nice play. Then I have JT going up against the Broncos here. The Colts are bottom 6 in implied point total, which is not great. JT's had an underwhelming season, only 1 game above 20 points. Where you drafted him, if you were drafting him back end round 1, you were hoping he could have 20 plus point per game upside. He's only hit that number once. He has had solid usage, 20 plus carries in 6 of his last 8 games, but like I said, just hasn't been all that great. Offense not super exciting. Richardson vulturing touchdowns, mid-tier RB2 for me. And then going to wrap up this tier with Isaac Guerendo going up against the Rams. Wasn't sure exactly what the usage was going to look like. Was he going to be out there on passing downs? Was he going to be the 3-down workhorse? He pretty much was that 3-down workhorse. Aside from him leaving early, he was dominating the opportunities. 15 for 78 on the ground with 2 touchdowns, 2 for 50 through the air. Like I said, I think the question was how involved was he going to be as a pass catcher? His route participation when he was in the game and healthy was really strong. Now the concern here for Guerendo is he suffered a foot strain, and it's reported to be mild, but they play on Thursday Night Football. So is this a spot where they're going to rush him back? Is he going to be limited, not getting the same usage? Maybe they just sit him out altogether. Definitely something we'll have to kind of reevaluate or, just take a look at throughout the week. But if he's healthy, good to go. I think he's a really nice play and probably would be ranked higher. Like if he was playing Sunday and we found out in a day or 2 he was a full participant, he would probably be, honestly, maybe even up in that tier 2 area. Like that's how high I'd be if he could maintain the usage from last week. Now moving into tier 4, I have back-to-back Buccaneers running backs. It is Bucky Irving and Rachaad White going up against the Chargers. I will say it's tough to rank these guys right now because we just don't have a ton of injury clarity on Bucky Irving. It seemed like they pulled him, was somewhat precautionary, came into the week with that back injury, tightened up on him during the game. There's a few issues here. First off, it's just not a great matchup. Chargers bottom 6 in points per game allowed to the running back position. But the problem here is that if you knew that all these running backs were healthy, Bucky Irving would obviously be the top play. We saw prior to week 14, he had monster games in week 12 and week 13. But now the issue is you add in this injury risk. Rashad White obviously had a monster game once Bucky Irving was out of the lineup. So if Bucky's playing, I feel like they have to be close to back-to-back because maybe they're going to limit his usage, not trying to run him into the ground here. So right now I have them both as mid-tier RB2 options. After those two, going to go with Brian Robinson going up against the Saints. It's a nice matchup here. They are top 6 in points per game allowed to the running back position. No Austin Eckler. He's on IR. Brian Robinson should handle a solid workload in a good spot here against the Saints. Also should be a very favorable game script. Get ahead early on. Brian Robinson can be that late game hammer. My running back 21 is going to be Rico Dowdle going up against the Panthers. On paper, this is a really nice matchup. The Panthers are first in points per game allowed. Now, I did mention early on, actually did a decent job against Saquon Barkley, but I still think Rico Dowdle's fine here. And he's really just put it together over the last 3 games. Super efficient and a productive option on the ground in those last 3. Rushing, he has gone 19 for 86, 22 for 112, and then 18 for 131. You'd like to see a little bit more touchdown upside in there, but in a favorable matchup, he's operating as the workhorse. I think he's, belongs in tier 4. I've got a couple more guys in this tier. My running back 22 is going to be Tony Pollard going up against the Bengals. He's had pretty consistent, solid usage on the season. He's averaging over 20 opportunities per game. It's a nice matchup here in terms of their implied point total. The Titans offense should be better, than usual. The Bengals, though, have actually been pretty tough against opposing running backs. The production's been kind of up and down for Pollard. With the usage, though, I do definitely think he's a top 24 option, so an RB2 play. And then my last guy in this tier, Aaron Jones going up against the Bears. Really strong start to the season. First 6 games, he had 17 plus points in 4 of those 6. He has hit that 17-point number 1 time in his last 7 games. So the production, it's been iffy. Bears haven't been like a cakewalk for running backs, so I think he's fine here towards the back of tier 4. Now moving into tier 5, going to start off with Tyrone Tracy going up against the Ravens. And I talked about Malik Nabers in my wide receiver video and just how he's getting let down by his current situation, the quarterback play. Tyrone Tracy is in a similar spot. When you look at this dude's usage in week 14, it is like RB1 usage on even an average offense. 83% snap share, 71% route participation. He took 21 out of 27 total opportunities. The problem is you look at this offense, not a good matchup here against the Ravens, and they have by far the lowest implied point total, all the way down at 14.5. So even with that usage, what are you really going to be able to get out of it against the Ravens? I guess maybe you're hoping he's just super involved as a pass catcher in a trailing game script. That definitely could be the case, but this is also a spot where the Giants offense just once again looks completely incompetent. That would be my concern here against the Ravens. After Tyrone Tracy, you can go with Najee Harris going up against the Eagles. Not a good matchup, bottom 4 in points per game allowed, but he just continues to get consistent usage on the ground, 16 plus carries in each of his last 7 games. Then I have DeAndre Swift going up against the Vikings, and his season's been weird. He had a really rough stretch. Then in the middle of the season, he was just absolutely tearing it up. Then his production is completely tanked. Under 10 PPR points in 4 of his last 5, only 1 touchdown in his last 6 games. It's also a bad matchup here. Bottom 3 in points per game allowed to the running back position. So he's still the running back 1, on a team, which is going to be valuable, the clear top option, but it's not a good offense, and it's not a good matchup here against the Vikings. Then I have Ramondre Stevenson going up against the Cardinals. He's had nice usage, 18 plus carries in 3 of his last 4. I am a little bit concerned that maybe we see a little bit of a dip in usage. Typically during the bye week, teams are able to kind of take a deeper look. They're able to self-scout. And Ramondre's been dominating the opportunities, but Antonio Gibson has been the more efficient option. So I'm not saying that Gibson's going to completely flip this backfield, but I really would not be shocked if this was a much closer backfield heading into week 15. And then the last guy in this tier for me, Isaiah Pacheco going up against the Browns. He took 18 of the 26 running back opportunities. That's what we wanted to see. His first game back from injury, very close split, definitely pulled away this past week. It is a bad matchup on paper here against the Browns, so that's not ideal. But with that type of usage, I think he's a nice option. And then my final tier here, Definitely some honorable mentions I'll talk about, but I'm just going to go with the Jets running backs. Assuming Breece Hall is out, I have Isaiah Davis as my running back 29, Braylon Allen as my RB 30. I mean, this was like about as close to a 50-50 split as you could get. I believe Braylon Allen took one more snap, ran two more routes, but they each had 16 opportunities. The only thing that really separated them was the Isaiah Davis touchdown, and he took the one goal line snap, so I gave him the slight edge. I'm honestly like not locked in that like he's the goal line guy. It could have just been like a very random situation. So in a good matchup, the Jaguars are second in points per game allowed to the running back position. In a split, I think they're both fine, like mid-tier RB3 plays. Honorable mentions to Sincere McCormick, just kind of waiting for the injury status of those other running backs, Tank Bigsby, Jalen Warren, Nick Chubb, Gus Edwards. Those are all guys that will be in my video later on in the week. But that's going to wrap it up for my top 30. Any questions, drop them down below. Check out the wide receivers. Defense is out later today. But thank you all for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next one.